Hello and good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm sorry for this delay because my computer did just not want to play with me, but I hope you will forgive me and give us because now I am not in my usual place. I don't know if you can see what is outside. So this is a mountain which is called Kirkjufell and it is in Grundarfjörður. I will speak to you more about that in a heartbeat. So why are we doing these sessions? Inspiring conversation, it's all about creating conversations that really matter. We are diving into ways to connect deeply, break down barriers, and build moments that inspire trust and growth. Whether it's with your team at work or in your everyday chats, will bring more positivity, realness, and impact into every conversation. So, who is my guest today? And boy, oh boy, oh boy, am I looking forward to speaking to him because he has been waiting patiently for me. And here you are, Mr.
Good morning.
Lewis Chaney. So, this was first. I have never in my life encountered this. How about you?
Oh, I have worked in television for most of my career, so technical difficulties, if you can have it, there's a real high probability I've run into it at some point. So yeah, I've always said that tech is like a junkyard dog. It's not a matter of if you're going to get bit, it's a matter of when.
Well, yes. So, did you see the mountain?
I did. That is absolutely gorgeous. Wow.
So,
Sets perfect
if
in the
I
mood of what I'm talking about.
I could be like this, but can you see it still?
That is just absolutely gorgeous out there. Holy cow.
Yeah. And for you people who are listening, this mountain was in Game of Thrones season 5. It's very well known. And people come on Game of Thrones, they're like they have to come here and see it. So, Lewis,
Yes.
can you just go for? I want to welcome people to this stream. This is the inspiring conversation, and you just like I'm a little bit thrown off, but now we are driving this. We are going to chat for an hour. So the topic is choosing the good news, shifting workplace mindsets for happiness, or whatever we want to change it for, but not negativity and unhappiness. And in these times, I think that we need some happiness. But can you, Louis, just tell us a little bit about you and why I am I find you inspiring.
Why you find me inspiring, you'll have to let them know that. But a little bit of the
Oh
background
yes,
on me.
yeah.
I've worked in television. That was my career for a great number of years. Most of that was spent in television news. So I have seen the best and the worst of humanity, more often the worst. And I have decided for the rest of my life after I left that industry to do everything I can to lift other people up in whatever way I can. And that's why I've dedicated myself to the speaking world and I'm involving myself more in my magic world because I'm a professional speaker and also a professional magician. So those two things have kind of combined and they even have programs for that. But I'm doing everything I can to make people happy and smile. That's what I'm about.
But how do you like? Because you mentioned that you were in the TV industry. What made you what? Well, can you say what made you change, or what inspired you, or what happened? So you wanted just to say sayonara TV and go from there, like because I did it myself. I did it when I quit my job after 12 years. for the council. But like you are, I guess that you were stepping out of the TV industry. I think a lot of insecurity and and the market in US is totally different than anywhere else. Like you are not secured. Like weren't you frightened?
No, not at all. What happened was I worked in television, worked in news a lot. I spent 2 years in Nashville, Tennessee, working with country music artists. And that was the best time of my life. I got to go and do nothing but good news stories every single day. And then that played out, and I came back into television news. It's not something that I enjoyed, but it's something I could do. And then what happened was the station that I worked for, which is literally 2 minutes away from me here, they got bought out and there was changes made and some of us lost our job. And I have to tell you, I wasn't upset about it. I even told my wife I wasn't upset about leaving because it's such a high stress industry. People I don't think really realize how much stress there is. And when I
Yeah.
left, this is not a joke. My kids looked at me, and my kids were younger then. This has been 13, no, 14 years ago now. My kids were younger. They both looked at me about a month after I'd left and said, "Dad, you're different." Because I thought I was handling the stress okay. I thought I wasn't bringing it home, but I was still bringing some of it home. And after that realization, I'm like, I never want to go back into something that makes me that stressed again and makes me have to deal with the negativity. I just didn't want to do it.
So because I know you are a magician, maybe
Hmm.
you mentioned it before, but did you go then straight to magic, or did you like what after you finished the like? It's just interesting. It's fascinating. It's
Well,
fascinating.
what happened with me was I started with a partner of mine, a business friend of mine, a really good friend of mine. We started a business together. We were doing commercial production. So we did that for a little while. We even tried to do some shows to get those taken off. And it just never really played out. In the meantime, I started branching off into my magic more professionally, playing some restaurant gigs. And I learned real quickly, man, that it's the coolest thing in the world to be able to go and perform at a table for 5 or 10 minutes, or maybe 15, depending on the audience. And I can walk into this place and be in the worst mood. I could have had the worst day. And you give me my first table, and after I've played them, it's a bounce. I lift them up and put them in the state of awe, and it bounces back, and I get it. So I'm like, okay, I need to work on this and try getting that out there. Then in the meantime, I stumbled into a speaking gig with a company, and I started doing professional speaking. And then I found the National Speakers Association. And now all of that's just culminated. It's taken me several years to get to where I am, but I am in a much better place than I was before. And I think I'm in a better place to really help other people, which is what I want to do. I mean, it may sound kind of crazy, but it's just I've been a late bloomer my whole life, man. It's taken me this long to get here.
But that is just it. Just to take the plunge, or like I remember when I did it. Of course, I was scared. I was really scared. But then again, I was just I need to do something else. And that's why talking about the environment I'm in, I'm sitting in a house which is was built in 1908. And downstairs is a restaurant and I'm a waiter. I am well waiter in quotation mark because at the end of the day, speaking to people, meeting people, talking to them, give them like great food and just be interested and well, I have had my moments as when I was asked how the cod was, and I didn't realize what the person was asking, and so I answered, "It's white."
How are the green beans? They're green. So
Well, but that's not it because then she said, looked at me like I was complete, like, and I was just like, what kind of question is this? And then she said, no, I mean, how is the cod? And I was just like, okay, there must be something wrong with this lady. Like, what is happening? Why? And I was just like, it's dead. And then I started laughing nervously. She started laughing nervously. And then she said, "No, I mean, how is it prepared?" And I was like, "Oh, because I'm working in a restaurant. Yes, it's fried."
No, you
And
said that it's dead. I hope you're not serving anything live when you're there.
what? Yes, but my friend, he said like, "Oh my God." And this was my first shift. And he was just like, "What the hell did the world bring to me?" Like, what? But this is it. I am having the best time of my life when I'm speaking with people and I say such nonsense. I I once sold. I couldn't remember the name of Goldenberry in Latin, and I tried to sell it as a sex disease. The name of the Goldenberry is Pisalis, PH. And I was just like, when I found the word, I just lit up as like and set the disease. But in the second I said it, I just no, 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 no. And the people at the table, they cried their eyes out. And then, and I was just, how could I do this? But this is what makes life interesting because you can't be perfect. And that may be a long segment to talk about the topic, like choosing the good news. And because we are, maybe our topic is great for the moment because the world
Mhm.
is in a difficult place.
It is.
There are loads of rubbish out there. People are stressed, people are anxious, people are nervous, and in particularly in your neck of the woods, which we will not discuss, but loosely. Uh, so how can we like choose? Well, my suggestion has been to people that just turn off the radio, turn off the TV. That's it. But you have to know stuff. So, what is
Mhm.
your recommendation after you have been working in this industry for ages and then all of a sudden you quit? You feel and sense the negativity, you start to relax. How can you sift through the weeds of all of this stuff?
I'll tell you what works for me, and this is something that's interesting. When I worked in the news industry, you learn to compartmentalize things. I would go to, let's say, to give you an example, just a generic example, go to a house fire where people had lost their lives. I can't bring that home and stress about it all the time. I have to find a way to work around that. I have to find an outlet to get away from that. And I'm applying what I learned there in my life now. And yeah, you can sit and you can watch it. But here's the thing I tell people: you, whatever you consume, consumes you. And if you just sit all the time and you watch this stuff, when it doesn't, I mean, I know right now is the worst time in all the stuff that's going on in the world, particularly from what's happening here in the United States. But even before that, if you turn on the news, what do you see? You see bad news most of the time because in the news industry, there's a term, at least there is here in the States. If it bleeds, it leads. And that's the way that everybody adjusts their newscast. They plan on putting the worst stuff up front because we're voyeuristic by nature. And you drive by a car wreck, what happens? Everybody's doing this and slowing down traffic, right? But for me, I know to only take it in doses. We have to step away. You and I chatted the other day. What do I do? One of the things I do, I encourage people to step away from it. Don't become misinformed. I mean, don't become completely uninformed. You want to stay connected. You want to make sure that you're getting the information. But my thing was, instead of saying if it bleeds, it leads, I believe if it's good, it should. And there's all sorts of good news out there all around you in the world, on the internet, in your personal life. You just have to be attuned to it. And one of the things that I do to step away, like right now, you and I chatted about this the other day. When I get too much of it and the stress gets overwhelming, you see behind me my kitchen back here. My wife and I turn on music, we go in there and we play cards. We put everything away for a few hours. And before we go to bed, that way we're relaxed when we go to bed and we can sleep. But there's all kinds of opportunities around people. And that's what I try to tell them. Find them. They're out there. You just have to look.
But why is it that now I immediately started to think about social media?
Hmm.
Like because like okay, we are at a certain age, like we are 29-ish, and
So, right.
like we are not used to this stuff. Like we are not used to being on our phones. Well, I can, but like but I know when to stop, I think. But the young people, they get like when I was growing up, if
Mhm.
it was in the newspaper the day after, then you were just like, oh, it has happened. I'm not worried.
Right.
But now the young people, they get it in a heartbeat. A man drove into this market, killed 4 people. A man, like the negativity that drives us, and growing like when my kids were growing up, that they were on Snapchat or whatever like the name is, and they had to be burned, or they could no, they had to. They were not burned. They had to hold their streaks or something like. I'm really 29 ish, 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 ish. So how can we not do this? How can we help them to like be like the race horses? Like you just have this. You have the blindfolds.
You know, the funny thing is, you talk about that with kids, young people, younger than us, we'll say that. We'll just call it younger people. The
Yeah.
younger people, you're not going to disconnect them from it. They're just not. Because I mean, I've got two boys, 24 and 28. They're both gamers. They're on there all the time. They're on their phones all the time. And you have to engage them, especially if they're younger. Make time, like we would make time when my kids were both playing games very, very heavily at home. We gave them a time slot. This is how much you get to play. This is how much time you get to be on your phone. Restrict it and make them step away and then do things with them. Don't just make them step away and expect them to just entertain themselves. Do something for them, do something with them, and then talk about the good things and take them places and do fun stuff. Like I said, play a game with them. My kids played games with us all the time. There's ways to do it without having to be, you know, authoritarian in the sense that you have to put your phone away and you can't touch it forever, because that's not going to work either. It's going to create animosity. We went down that road. You're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. You're not going to win that battle. You're just not going to win that battle. But I
Uh-huh.
want to share this with you. I'll tell you something funny. When my youngest son, who's now 24, when he was about, I don't know, 14, 15 years old, something like that, he got in trouble with us for something and we banned him. I said, okay, no games for a week. You don't get to go up in your room and hide. You get to sit down here with us. You get to watch whatever we're watching, and you're stuck with your mom and dad when you get home from school. And he said, what can I watch YouTube on my phone? I said, I'll allow that. So he sits over here. And in a week's time, this is not a joke. In a week's time, he finds this video on juggling and he gets 3 golf balls. He now thanks me because he said, Dad, thanks to you, I learned how to juggle. Because a skill he had never, because I took his phone away, the kid winds up learning how to juggle, because he got focused on another area. He found something happy to do instead of all the stuff that was going on. So yeah, there's ways around it. You just got to, and no kid is the same, man. They don't come with an instruction manual and they're not the same. You just got to figure out what works for you and your family. But there are ways that you can distract them from it. Or as I call it, in the world of magic, talking about distraction. In the world of magic, and I'm just going to show you real quick because I think people may find this fun. What this is, all magic is simple misdirection. Having you look where I don't want you to look. Having you look where I want you to look instead of where it is. Watch close. If I take this here, you can see it happen. I'm going to show everybody how to do this. You can do this at home. Okay. But in that split second of time, I'm misdirecting you to where I want you to look. when you're think about it this way, it's positive misdirection. You have to find a way to positively misdirect yourself in this stuff. If you're absorbing all of this negativity, then you're going to dump it back out. It doesn't matter how much you think you're not going to, you're going to. So you've got to have that positive mindset to be able to have the positive mindset for them. So it begets each other.
But Rab Bessie, he asked, how do you keep a positive outlook when so much is trying to lead with the bleeding stories? And what you say, like how can we
How can you do it?
embrace? Yes, and because there is one thing that is you are doing it for yourself, and then you have your wife, and she
Right.
is maybe anxious about totally different stuff than you. And then we have the oldest son, and he is totally anxious about war in the world. And then the youngest one, he is totally anxious about, do I get to play the game tonight?
Exactly.
Yes. So okay, let's go through that.
Okay. All right. For doing it for my kids, especially since they're older, all I can do is guide them the best I can. But for doing it for myself, and when I tell people to choose the good news, what I mean by that is think of it this way, and I'm going to take you into the news business and show you behind the curtain a second. In the news industry, you have a producer, and a producer is the person who lines up every story that goes into the show. They put in everything all the way through the show. They give the sports their time, the weather their time. They put everything. What happens when you watch most newscasts, especially local newscasts, at least here, they show you all this negative stuff and it's constant pow, 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 beating you up. And then at the end of it, they have what's called a kicker. The kicker story is like a 30-second story on something uplifting, something fun. Maybe it's a thing about a dog. And what I tell people is you've got to focus on the kicker, not the news. You've got to start looking for it. You're not going to, the news that's good is not just going to pop into your lap, but it is there and you can create it as well. Go find something to do. I talked to, when all this came up, and you and I talked about this, when all this came up, I found a number for a suicide hotline, and it's also a crisis number. In the United States, it's 988. You dial that and you get someone. And I called them, not because I was suicidal, but I said, okay, this is what I teach people is how to step away. Am I doing everything I should be? Is there anything else you can suggest that I can do? And they told me the same things that I'm talking about right now. If you've got a hobby, get into your hobby. Take time to go do something with your family. Watch a movie that's fun. Last night, my wife and I got on YouTube, and I go down a rabbit hole on YouTube. Here's what I watched last night on YouTube. I'm not kidding. Before we went to bed, we watched this. There's a show from BBC Radio called, what's it called? Playground Insults. And it's celebrities setting and insulting each other for fun. Then we got onto a thing where somebody was doing rehab for a beaver. And then I watched some sort of a barbershop quartet do a fun bit. There's all sorts of stuff out there. If you type in the good news on the internet, you'll find all sorts of different websites that provide nothing but it. So it's not something that's hard to do. It's something you almost have to make yourself do. You have to disconnect from this thing to do it.
So, okay, I'm still thinking about the beaver in rehab.
It was a beaver that apparently it couldn't swim. It had a disease, and somebody had brought it to this shelter, this woodland place, where they do rehab for them to be able to turn them back out into the wild. But it was the cutest story of this little beaver, and they're doing all this stuff for it. I've shot all this video and do this cool story on it, and it just warms your heart and makes you smile. It gives me a chance to compartmentalize and take away all the other stuff that's negative right now and find something positive so I go to bed with a smile on my face rather than go to bed all angry and pent up over what's happening in the world.
It's good that I was paying attention because my mind wandered off because that's how easy I am. Like, and you started talking about the beaver, and I was just like, is the beaver in rehab with people, or like did he drink too much alcohol? Like I was just like, I didn't even think that he couldn't swim. I was like,
He couldn't swim and he had a disease. Here's what I think you're picturing. I think you're picturing some beaver with a coke habit. Give me something. No, not a beaver like that.
how is this? Because we tend to forget to look at what is awesome in the world, the awe when you're walking outside and you just like, and you are like here in Iceland, like we can bitch and moan about the weather because we can have in 15 minutes we can have sun, rain, snow, hail, sun, wind blowing from every other, like, and we just like, yeah. But then again, in like me, because I thought about the beaver, I can look at the ocean and see, oh, there's two ducks, they're in love. It's just like, where can I find these moments of awe instead of looking always for the worst thing in, ooh,
Have you
I
seen this
own,
book?
I own this book.
Okay. For all those out there, I get nothing for this. This is something that I stumbled into. It's by, I think it's Dr. Keltner is his name. All the new science of everyday wonder and how it can transform your life. This book talks about exactly that, where to find awe and how to find awe. But it's like you said, finding that moment out there. You talked about the weather, by the way. We have something in common. I'm in Kentucky in the United States. Yesterday we had winds like 40-mile-an-hour up to gusts. We had 30 something degree. We had a little bit of snow, and next week it's supposed to be 70. So we kind of get all those weather things in this season too. But you've got to find the things that just do silly things. I mean, I do magic, what I call drive-by magicking. That coin trick I showed you, for example. I'll be in a restaurant, I'll do it for somebody because it makes them smile. It takes
Mhm.
30 seconds of my time, and because I made them smile, it makes me smile. You have to do goofy stuff. I mean, it's I'm going to give you I'm going to give you sorry.
Yeah.
See what just happened? It was the stupidest thing in the world, but you're laughing, and that's what I'm about. It's like, find little goofy things you can do like this. This is a little sponge frog you can buy on the internet, and it just you just walk up to somebody. You're talking about being like walk up to a table and you're about to wait on them and go, "Excuse me, folks, I have a frog in my throat." They're gonna chuckle. They're just going to. It's you got to. You almost kind of have to get in touch with that inner child in you sometimes to just not just ignore it. Like somebody said here, it's not about ignoring the bad news, but keeping it in perspective by doing something you enjoy. Stepping out of the rain to get that smile going. That is exactly what I'm talking about. Is you've got to get out there to do it. And in the news business, we had gallows humor because we're dealing with such bad stuff. And I
Ah,
won't go into that, but we had to have that as a release. But I'm not a stress expert. I'm just a stress survivor like everybody else, and I've just got some ideas on what you can do to maybe step away from it. And the magic stuff, I will tell everybody this: the little bit of magic, and I've shown you a thing here today. Learn a couple of magic tricks because it's universal. I have played magic for people that I can't speak their language, they can't speak mine, but I can do something with them, and it's universal. And what it did is it created that moment, that smile. It may sound crazy, but if you do a little bit of magic with somebody, watch what happens when you see their reaction. And when you get that reaction, it's going to bounce back. I'm telling you, it just does. Jessica said she loves gallows humor. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
Jessica,
yeah.
probably chat about that.
I I do too, because but talk about the frog thing, because at that moment I was thinking about chicken, but because you said your hometown was Kentucky.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I know.
You
Here's the
you
thing.
you you really know how to distract me. So I'm just like, I'm very food oriented, ain't I?
I'm noticing that. Well, here's the thing. I'm surprised that you said chicken. Why didn't you go to frog legs? Why didn't
Well,
you go to frog legs?
I have never tried them, so I have to go to France and try that. But how? Okay, so
Mhm.
this is the small things, but
Right.
you, because sometimes people who are considered positive, I try to smile every time. I try to be happy, or because I had a father who was an alcoholic, and what I hated, I absolutely hated was the annoying silence sometimes. So I said something stupid or funny or, you know, just weird. And people started laughing, and then we were off again. But, and I just, in my mind, life is too short
Oh
to
yeah.
being negative or being unhappy. And because you mentioned, you talked to the suicide hotline,
Mhm.
and I have been putting it, running through the screen, like, we have to somehow step out of this. Oh, like, are we too much of a victims? Am I too harsh now?
No, I don't think it's that at all. I mean, here's the thing. I think you can allow yourself to be a victim or not. And I mean, what I love about what you just said is just in the time I've gotten to know you, we've had 2 or 3 conversations prior to today. I find you to be a very uplifting and fun person. Look what you're doing with this channel. And you're not letting what happened to you make who you became. It may have changed you in a lot of ways to make you funny because of the stuff that you did do, or to make you want to enjoy people and give them a lift, but you didn't get caught up in it. And I think oftentimes we can do that. And I know people who are like that. They're perpetual victims. And some of those people, I just do what I can to help them as much as I can. But you talked about what we can do. We're talking about getting out of it. Another thing too, volunteer. Go do something that makes you happy with doing stuff with other people. Find whatever your cause is and go help them. Have a friend who goes and helps the soup kitchen every week because that's something that warms her heart. And you talked about the humor side of it too, and lifting people up and doing it for other people. It's not even so much about doing it for yourself. If you're positive, you're going to be positive. I'm going to tell you 2 quick stories on that. One, when COVID happened, we all went into lockdown around
Yeah.
here. We were shuttered for a long, long time. We were all nervous and scared and wondering what's going on. And I was isolated with my family, which was great. I had my family, so I wasn't alone, and I had my health, which was good. But I vowed that when it was over, I was going to put on a shirt that said free hugs and go stand in front of Walmart here in Henderson, Kentucky, and just hug people. So I got with a cousin, and after COVID was over, we did that. Guys, let me tell you something. If you've never hugged about 200 people in 2 hours, you really should try it. Let me tell you why. It is like a drug. What you give and what you get back is twice as much as what you're giving. I got so much positive energy from that, so much positive energy. I didn't go to sleep till midnight that night. I was just jacked up on this, just the connection, which is one of the things I talk about. And the second thing is, you talked about life is short. You said life is short, which made me think of this. Lifting people up is so easy, a dead man can do it. And let me explain what I mean by that. I had a friend of mine who, this has been many years ago. He died at the age of 42. We go to his funeral. I am a pallbearer at this man's funeral. Now, I'm going to mention a song here. A lot of people may not know, but you can look it up and you'll understand. We're at his funeral. It's a very somber experience. We're sitting here on the front. I'm sitting on the front row. He's laid out in the casket with his matching Regis Philbin was big at the time, so he had the matching shirt and tie. And the song that comes over the crackling speakers as they fire up is a song called Wasn't That a Party? The lyrics are, could have been the whiskey, might have been the gin, could have been the 3 or 4 6-packs. I don't know, but look at the mess I'm in. My head is like a football. I think I'm going to die. But tell me, oh my, wasn't that a party? That is the first song at this guy's funeral. And it perfectly fit him because this guy loved life and he loved to laugh and he loved to party and he did this. And we're sitting here, we're in this funeral and we're trying to go like this.
Yeah.
You don't want to laugh. So then that song goes off. We're like, we made it. The next song that came on is an old country song called Trashy Women. I like my women just a little on the trashy side when they wear their hair too. They wear their hair too what in their hair, and they wear their clothes too tight, and their hair is dyed. That's what it is. And at that point, we gave up. Everybody in there is sitting here laughing, and it's perfect. The guy loved life so much he left us dying laughing. So I challenge everybody. If you think you can't find the good news, you think you can't lift yourself and others up, you're going to let a dead man beat you?
But that is it. Because why are you not celebrating the person's life in a funeral?
Exactly.
I have
You
my I have my song, and my wife, when I mentioned it to her for the first time, she was just like, "No," and I said, "Why not? It's my funeral. I can I will decide." And it's Celebration by Kool and the Gang. She was just like, what the f is wrong with you? And I was just like, no, because I this is my take on life. It's a party. It's just like having fun, and now it's a party for people who are celebrating that. Okay, and I have annoyed many people with, because it's also my phone ringing. People are just like, isn't that an old song? It's like, oh, it's the best song ever. No, but you are
But you're right.
celebrating life.
You're right. You should be celebrating life. I've told people I don't want anything somber at my funeral. I want a couple of things. Here's what I want. And you're going to add this to what you want to do when you're dead. I'm being cremated. Okay. I
Yeah.
want my ashes, first of all. I've already got it worked out with a friend of mine. If he outlives me and if he dies before me, I'll pick somebody else. I have it worked out with a friend to bring my ashes into my celebration of life 10 minutes late. I want to be late to my own funeral. Okay. On top of that, he's going to set the ashes up front. Now, you've seen these rugs you can buy, we buy them like at Halloween here. You step on it and they're connected to a speaker and it screams. I want one of those put in front of the urn because then I want the speaker right behind my urn so I can take somebody with me when I go. And the song that I want to play, I'm going to have an open mic. I want people to get up and talk about the stupid stories of things that we did that make people laugh. That's what I want. And then the song for me, my son has sworn he's going to play. My youngest, Evan, has sworn he's going to play. There's a song out there by a comedian named Tim Wilson who passed away a few years ago. If you've not heard it, I highly recommend everybody look it up. If you get offended easily, maybe not. But the song is called First Baptist Bar and Grill. And it's about a church that burned down and they decide to use the bar across the street for their church service. And part of the lyrics are, it's the only church in the Bible Belt that smells like a whiskey still. Okay. And it's hilarious. And my son says, I want to play this because I want people laughing at your funeral. That's what it should be. Put the fun back in funeral. I'm with you on that.
Well, it's hard to go back to the seriousness of the bad stuff and bad news, because we are this is the most intriguing, inspiring conversation I think I have. No pun intended to those I have been talking to, but how? But like we too, we are maybe on the light side of life, but then we have the people who, as you say, as you mentioned, like people who are always, if you come in and you say, hey, good morning, what's good about it?
We call those people Eeyore from Pooh.
Yes, thank
Well,
yes, thank
Pooh.
you.
That's
Yeah,
Eeyore.
ER. Yeah.
Exactly. The Eeyores of life. But here's
So
the thing, and I'm not talking about being so. I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't mean to talk about being so what we call toxic positivity. Don't be
no,
that
no, no,
person.
no, no.
Hi, how are you? It's a good
Yeah,
day. Because people, I mean, people can sniff that stuff out. They know that you're
yeah,
being fake. But you can be happy, and if you are happy and uplifting, guess what? I've got a friend in my life who's an Eeyore. He's an Eeyore, and I make him laugh when he's around me. I do stuff to make him laugh. I tell him a joke because humor is good mood food, man. Humor
yeah.
is one of the best ways to do it. Now, for those of you who are doing this at work, remember that meme that's out there that says, "Don't tell a joke that's so funny HR wants to hear it." Okay, you want to make sure you don't get in trouble, but you can do some light humor stuff. And humor goes a long, long way. And if you're going to tell a joke, please, please, please do me a favor. Don't do this. Three guys walked into a bar. No, 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 no. No.
No.
You can't read a joke, man. A joke is a living, breathing thing. And I'm going to share this with you because it's one of the things I do when I speak. I'm going to share this. Give me a moment, if you would, please. I love to tell jokes as I'm doing my storytelling in my speaking world. So I'm going to tell you this one real quick. Hopefully, it'll make people out there laugh. There was a big oil well fire in Texas. Flames just, I mean, shooting way up into the sky. The smoke could be seen from miles around. They had called in specialists. They called in all the fire departments. People were gathered around. All the news stations were there. This thing was burning out of control. They were so desperate, they finally called up this local volunteer fire department down the road. Down the road. Here they come, covered up. There's guys all over the vehicle. The vehicle comes passing to the crowd like this. Ding, 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 and goes. These guys get within 50 feet of the fire, jump out, put the fire out. The crowd goes crazy. The governor is elated. In a news conference right afterward, the governor says, right now, I'm going to sign a $5 million deal to get this fire department anything that they want because they are our heroes today. And they turned to the fire chief and they said, Chief, what's the first thing you're going to do with that money? The chief said, well, probably fix the brakes on that damn truck. You know, I keep jokes like that. I got that out of Reader's Digest when I was a kid. And I've kept that joke in my head for all these years because just take a moment and do something like that. Make people laugh. You may not be able to fix Eeyore, but pin his tail on for a second. He may lose it again, but pin it back on for him for a second.
But how is it, coming back to the awness in life?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
What is, like, when you read the book, I gather that are you reading the book or have you read it?
I've read about 3/4 of it.
Yeah, and what is the biggest take from that book that you was there a moment when you're reading it that you realized that I've been doing that all my life? Or was it like, I didn't realize that? Like, what is it that the author says in that book that resonates with you to see the awe in life?
For me, what happened was he has a part in there where he talks about taking people on all walks. And you mentioned that a while ago about nature. You look out your window right now and you see that gorgeous beauty out there. You have to just stand in awe of it. If you're out and you just see a baby bird or when COVID happened, we were feeding birds and squirrels out here. And I sat and I watched them. And I just enjoyed watching nature. But when people are in awe, and they had people do this as an experiment in the book, they had them take pictures of themselves. Okay. Then they took them through these things of different things that can create awe, like the awe walks I'm talking about. And they were having them take photos as they're doing stuff. You know what happened? And I'll show you an example by using this frame. Notice here, if you take a selfie, this is what their selfie would look like, right? But whenever they were in awe, they were showing what was behind them, and they were here. What happened was they became less the focus, and whatever was behind them became the focus. And that moment you realize what it does, what he talks about that it does, is it creates this sense of wonder. It makes you feel like you're a small part of something so much bigger. And as a result of that, it humbles you and makes you more empathetic to people. And then I discovered, well, how do I fit into that? What am I doing? And I have seen it with my own eyes. Someone mentioned a while ago, who was it that said on here, said your jaw just dropped at the magic trick.
Well, that was Rapasi.
Okay. Rab had said that, and I'm like, that's what I get all the time. That's minor. I do the stuff where I climb in your head and pull thoughts out and all that kind of crazy stuff. And when I leave people, they're like this. And I know they're in that moment of awe. And in that moment that they're in, nothing in the world matters to them. When I'm at their table for that 5 or 10 minutes, or I'm doing a show, or if I'm doing a speech, my goal is to take you away for that time so that your troubles aren't there. They're gone too. So doing that is what he's talking about. It's a way to make you forget things. And if whatever it is that gives you all, maybe it's listening to music. There could be certain songs. I saw a meme today that said, if music gives you chills, if a song gives you chills, for you, that'll be celebration. If a song gives you chills, then you're wired differently. But whatever it is that gives you that feeling where you just take in the world and your problems kind of go away, do that.
I just want to show you because a friend of mine, he posted on LinkedIn the scenario where I am. Can you see it?
Wow. Please send me that picture on LinkedIn.
Yes.
I want that. That is absolutely gorgeous. I mean,
The, the link is on LinkedIn underneath the event. So, and this is a thing that, well, of course, when people come here and they ask, "Isn't it fantastic to live here? How often do you see the Northern Lights?" And I was just sometimes when asked about the Northern Lights, I just yeah, because I'm so used to it,
right. I
and
understand.
then after a while, it just like, oh, it's there. Oh, okay, see ya. Okay, bye. And it is brilliant to see this.
It is.
Uh, uh,
Here's the thing. When I worked in Nashville, Tennessee, like I said, and my job was working with country music artists.
yeah,
Between 1998 and 2000, anybody who was big in that time, I did something with. The biggest thing I ever did, for me, the most satisfying in that business that I was in at that time, I spent 8 days in Belfast, Northern Ireland with Garth Brooks. And it
yeah,
was the best time in the world for me because I get up and do stuff with him all the time. Now, the funny thing is, to put it in perspective, people ask me, "You live in Nashville. Do you go to the Grand Ole Opry all the time?" I'm like, "No. The only time I go is when I'm working." It's like when people work in Florida. Do you go to Disney all the time? No, I don't go to Disney all the time. You get used to what's around you. But even if you take time, and I'll give people something they can use. When you're out, and like, let's say, for instance, where you are now, you've seen the Northern Lights, you see them all the time. I've seen them a few times in my life. You see them all the time. But when you're out walking in this nature area, okay, do this. Imagine that I'm going to do this if I can frame this for you. Imagine that what you're looking through is a checkerboard that's lines, 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 and lines, and bisects the picture, okay, or dissects the picture.
yeah.
Look at each of those squares on that screen and figure out what's in there I haven't really noticed before. That's how I did everything as a news photographer. I looked at it. A boss of mine taught me this. Leonard Judd, a mentor of mine, taught me this. If you look at the world that way and expand that shot, it's like cropping a picture and looking at it. What's in that little moment right there that you've never noticed? You can do that walking down a street. You may notice a lamppost. You may notice some small thing that you've walked by 1,000 times and never paid attention to. And you go, "That's kind of cool." And in that moment, you can have a moment simply by
Yeah.
looking at things through a different lens.
The man who sent us the link about, with the mountain, he's saying he will probably come and visit me for a dead codfish. Hopefully, we will have codfish. No, I'm joking. Of course, we have codfish.
See,
We also
right
have
there, that is a perfect example of taking what we're doing and putting the fun into it and
yeah,
taking what's around you and making a moment out of it. I applaud you for that comment because that's absolutely perfect. It fits into what we're talking about. And
yeah,
unfortunately, there's just you're not going to find it if you're watching television news, because this is something I've told people. It doesn't matter what part of the world you're in, what TV station you're watching, what news organization you're watching. We are all watching the station that has exactly the same call letters: WTYO. What ticks you off?
uh huh.
That's what it is. Now, I wanted to call it WPYO, what pisses you off, but unfortunately, that's a TV that actually exists, so I couldn't use it because I had to change it to TikTok. But that's what it is. Most of the news is just about stirring that pot of positivity and just getting you to go, "Grr," you know. What do you see? You see nothing but cars and wrecks. Here's an example. I'm going to show you something. Hang on. This is something I tell people. I hope it looks backwards to me. Is it right to you?
No, it probably will be. No, I don't think it's murder. So,
Okay.
like,
Sure. All
yes,
right.
I
All right.
I can read backwards.
Sorry, it's backwards. I don't know why, but anyway, you'll get the idea. Okay. When it comes to this stuff, I mean, this is the stuff that we covered in news. We had all kinds of things in news, guys. We had murder. We've got robbery. We have theft. We've got assault, poverty. Does this sound like your newscast? I mean, does this sound like everything you see on TV? Accidents,
Yes.
all of this stuff. Then what happens, as I told you at the end, right here, this is where your good news story goes. This is where your puppy dog story is, or whatever it is they're showing you that's light and airy. Somebody's having a lemonade stand or whatever. When I tell you to focus on this, what does that do? When you start looking for and noticing and jotting down things, if you have something funny in the day happen, write it down. When you start noticing, look what happens. All of the bad news turns into the good news. See?
That
A
was
little
magic.
magic. Exactly.
Bloody hell. What?
And
I
see
have,
what just happened on that look you just did. You just went, what?
yes. I'm so easy because this is just annoys me. I told you yesterday when we were talking. It annoys me because I don't know the solution. Why? How are you doing this? And it's just like, but okay, we have 7 minutes or so left.
Sure.
But I want to talk to you about,
Yeah.
okay, on the serious matter.
Go ahead.
People are living, as I mentioned in the beginning, they are anxious, they are nervous, they don't know where the future, if there is a future, whatever. And you mentioned the, and I will let it slide one more time. This is for the people, citizens in the U.S. And please, people who are watching this in your home, like check out what is in your home country. But please talk to somebody. How can we look at life and say, like you talk to them and ask them, how is the situation? How can we tell people that life is okay, life is fantastic, but life is what you make of it?
You know, here's the way I look at it is, being serious with you for a moment, there are times, especially what's going on now with the United States and the shakeup that our administration is causing the entire world right now, for which I'm infinitely apologetic for. I hate what's happening. And the overwhelm, which is what the intention of this was to overwhelm us with the idea that we go, I can't handle this anymore. I got to just not pay attention. That's the
Yeah.
worst thing that can happen. Do I let it get to me sometimes? Sure. I'm human. But here's what I choose. And it goes back to a choice, which is why I say choose the good news. I can let it roll me, and it does. There are times when I get down. There are times when it upsets me a lot. And my wife and I have discussions about it, and we talk about it. And I'm going to share this story I shared with you the other day real quickly. My wife and I got into it over something the other day, very minor. It doesn't matter what it was. It was incredibly minor. But because of the stress of the world, we got into a major argument over it, and it shouldn't have been an argument at all. And I realized after we'd been into it a little while, I'm like, this is not either of us. This is us finding an avenue for the stress in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
And that's when we both decided, okay, let's put everything down. Let's go play cards. Let's go do something positive. So you have to, when you have this stuff happen, it's going to roll you. You're going to wind up getting caught into it, and it's going to make you feel bad. It's going to make you feel depressed. It's going to make you cry. It's going to make you upset. It's going to make you angry. Let it out. Get mad. Scream. Beat a pillow. Do whatever you have to do. But then find something to offset that. That's the key. Don't stay in it. Don't just keep watching it, keep watching it until eventually you're paralyzed with fear and anger and whatever else you may be feeling.
This is brilliant. And that is the key. There is always hope.
Yes.
And right now it's just like, it looks like that everything is going to the shithole, but it's not.
You know,
We've been there.
I have to look at it this way. I have two beautiful granddaughters, and I will have both of them here this afternoon. You know what? I take time out just to spend time with them, because that is my good news for the day. That's all my good news is for the day. Although it's not, I've had a great conversation with you and engaging other people out there in the world who can also have a good day because of the stuff we're doing. They
Yeah,
can watch this and laugh at the stuff that you and I have talked about. And that's an ongoing thing. I failed to mention your website a while ago. Someone had mentioned that you have the good news too. That's what it's about, is putting this stuff out there and letting people find it. Who knows, in 10 years somebody could find this and sit down and laugh about it. You know what I mean? So we're giving something that can last a long time.
yeah. It has been absolute a pleasure talking to you, and like everybody else who I have met on my journey since I started this inspiring conversations journey. It's absolutely amazing how, it's like it's written somewhere. I don't know, it's God or the trolls or the elves or whoever, or the mountains or whatever. Like, it's just how interesting that there are people out there who are ready to go the extra mile because not everything is going down the drain.
Oh,
And I will
it's
mention your website, lewischaney.com, is slowly passing by, and it has been brilliant conversation when finally we got to start it. And please, people, just contact some, like, talk to people, open up, and try to see the beauty in life. I'm not like, we don't have to be positive all the time.
no.
Nobody is asking you about that. It just look at, you have, there's a reason for why you are here on this earth.
What's funny is I'm working on a show right now, a one-man magic show that goes right into that. And I know I'm going to give it a really, forgive me for, I'm from Kentucky. I have teeth. Yes, my wife is not my cousin, so I'm happy with all of that. But I will say, I'm going to say this, I know incorrectly, but my raison d'etre, I really honestly believe my two worlds coming together of muse and magic and being able to do things to lift people up is it. And that's what it's going to be about. That's what this show is going to be about. So I'm
Yeah.
looking very, very forward to getting that off the ground.
And just before we go off, this has been so good, says Huldar. Thank you, Héðinn and Lewis, for this great, inspiring conversation. And Rap Bessie, he says like, he's British, so he, maybe this is something like, if I read it, it probably sounds nothing like it should sound like. Inspiring, like, it's just because it's not English is not my first language. So, but thank you guys
English
for
is my only
watching.
language.
What?
You're ahead of me. You've got more than I do because English is my only language. I tried to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
I had to cheat to make a D. Not kidding. I
Yes.
stuffed that.
So, but thank you, Lewis. It has been absolutely amazing, and it's just like, even though it took us 15 minutes to get online and start this thing, it just has been amazing. And for you people out there, the next inspiring conversation is with next two inspiring conversations will be with French Canadians. I kid you not. I will be in my best element as a French Canadian. So Isabel Fortin is on Thursday, the 13th of March, where we will talking about how empowering the individual, the ripple effect of authentic choices. And I tell you, she was a fighter pilot in the Canadian Army.
Wow.
And I was just like, what?
Yeah.
This is what I
That's awesome.
mean. There are so many people out there who are just like exceptional. I am in awe of people who are out there, and just follow hands-on coaching on social media. They can find you on LinkedIn.
They can find me on LinkedIn, also on my website, and you can go to lewisbluemymind.com to find the magic stuff. There's a lot of video out there on that. So,
You're joking, right?
no,
Lewis
Lewis.
blew my mind.
Mhm. You need to watch that thing get back to me when your head explodes.
My mind went to the mental. Well, Lewis, you certainly blew my mind with chicken and everything.
I want to thank you for what you're doing by bringing this to light and bringing all these people out there who can share some positivity. You are a joy to this world as well. I'm glad to call you friend now because I've talked to you so much. I do want to stay in contact with you after this is over because I
Well,
just enjoy your personality a lot.
I think we will do that for certain. So thank you guys for watching, and thank you, Lewis, and just keep up the good humor. And Lewis, bluemymind.com.